You are born into a world where the ground itself decides where you live, not because you choose it, because the animals choose it first, and you follow. This is the oldest form of travel. There is not a journey with a destination, but a rhythm. The herds move with the seasons, chasing new grass as the old grass dies, and for tens of thousands of years, so do you. You don't wander randomly. You walk the same routes your parents walked, because those routes work. Rivers first, because water means everything: drinking water, fish, and a natural corridor that doesn't need a map, since the river is the map. Coastlines next, for the same reason, plus something rivers can't give you: shellfish you can gather without hunting, food that never runs dry. And always, the herds, because a herd of grazing animals knows where the next good grass is before you do. And if you stay close enough, you eat what they lead you to. This is how, over more than 60,000 years, your ancestors cross entire continents without ever deciding to. No one wakes up and says, today, we leave Africa forever. They just follow good grazing land east, then north, then east again, generation after generation, until one day their descendants are standing somewhere their great-great-grandparents never imagined. Walking, one grazing season at a time, is the engine underneath almost the entire human map. But walking has a limit. It's slow, and it costs you calories you don't always have to spare. So eventually, you stop just following the animals, you start using them. This shift takes tens of thousands of years to arrive, and it changes everything once it does. Around 6,000 years ago, on the grasslands of Central Asia, someone figures out that a horse doesn't have to be food. It can be transportation. At first, it's dangerous. Wild horses don't want a rider on their back, but through generations of selective breeding, horses become calmer, stronger, faster, built for carrying a person rather than just fleeing one. And the difference this makes is staggering. A walking human covers maybe 20 or 25 kilometers on a good day, exhausted by the end of it. A rider on a horse can cover that same distance before midday and keep going. Suddenly, the grasslands of Central Asia aren't a barrier, they're a highway. Entire cultures, like the early Steppe peoples, become defined by riding, moving herds faster, covering territory faster, trading faster, even raiding faster. Horses don't just get you somewhere quicker. They compress a month of walking into a week, which means ideas, goods, and people start moving across continents at a completely different speed than anything before it. Other regions solve this same problem with different animals. In North Africa and the Middle East, it's the camel, an animal that can go days without water, built for crossing deserts that would kill a horse or a walking human. In the Andes, it's the llama, sure-footed on mountain terrain no horse could handle. Different landscapes, same idea. Find the animal built for this terrain and let it carry you farther than your own legs ever could. But animals, no matter how well suited, can only take you as far as the land goes. And a huge amount of the world isn't land at all. This is where the story turns to water, and where travel stops being about following a path and starts being about crossing a gap with nothing solid underneath you. The first crossings are short and desperate. To reach Australia, over 65,000 years ago, someone has to cross open ocean tens of kilometers wide, even at the lowest sea levels of the Ice Age, with nothing but a raft. Bundled logs or bamboo, lashed together with plant fiber rope, wide and flat enough to survive a swell. No sail yet. You paddle, or you time the crossing for when current and wind are already moving toward where you're going. Later crossings get smarter, not just braver. Along coastlines in the Americas, people build skin boats, animal hides stretched over wooden frames, light enough to carry, sturdy enough to hop from bay to bay, island to island, without ever losing sight of land. This is a completely different kind of travel than the horse or the walk. It's not about speed, it's about surviving the fact that there's simply no ground to walk on. And then, around 3,000 years ago, boat travel reaches a point that still amazes people who study it today. In the Pacific, a stretch of ocean so vast it could swallow every continent combined, sailors build double-hulled canoes, two long hulls carved from tree trunks and connected by a platform, stable enough for genuine open ocean travel. They add sails woven from pandanus leaves, letting wind do the work human arms can't sustain for weeks at a time. They load them with fresh water in gourds, preserved food, and breeding pairs of animals, because these aren't short hops, they're deliberate voyages toward islands they've never seen, based only on faint signs that land exists somewhere ahead. For navigation, they build something without instruments at all memorized positions of dozens of stars rising and setting through the night. The feel of ocean swells through the canoe's hull, since a wave that has bounced off distant land moves differently than open water, and the flight patterns of seabirds that never sleep far from shore. Using nothing but canoe, sail, and memory, they reach Hawaii, New Zealand, and Easter Island, some of the most isolated places on Earth, on purpose, not by accident. Look at the shape of the whole story now. It starts with your feet, following herds along rivers, because that's simply how survival worked. It moves to the backs of animals once someone realizes a horse or a camel can carry you faster and farther than your own legs ever could. And it ends on the water, first out of desperation on a raft, then with deliberate skill on a canoe built specifically to conquer an ocean. 3 different problems, 3 different answers. Walking to follow what the land already gives you. Riding to outrun the limits of your own body. Sailing to go where there's no land at all. And every method along the way was built by people solving the same question, over and over. In whatever terrain they were handed, how do I get past the edge of what I already know? So next time you get in a car or board a plane or just walk down the street without a second thought, remember that every single one of those movements is standing on top of 100,000 years of people solving the exact same problem you'd have solved. How do I get from here to somewhere better? Here's a question for you. Out of everything you just saw walking with the herds, riding a horse across the steppe, or sailing into open ocean with nothing but stars to guide you, which one do you think you would have survived? Drop your answer in the comments. I actually want to know. If this kind of story is something you enjoy, do me a favor and hit like. It genuinely helps this channel grow. Share it with a friend who'd find this as fascinating as you just did. And if you want more of this real history, told like you're living it, subscribe, because there's a lot more of this coming.